You know, it's about you believing in yourself and in your product or in your service. Forget the kind of the things that you might be lacking on paper. Capitalise on the strengths that you do have. Don't think about, oh, well, I don't have this. What do you have? What are you bringing to the table?
Hi everyone, my name is REHNELL. Welcome to Discussion With. This show is aimed to provide advice, support and empowerment. Now previously I had a lovely lady on our Insta live chat, and she's done amazing work with the youth and the elderly, and I got a lot of feedback saying that you must get her on the show. She's done a hip-hop dance class, and she's also the founder of the Blair Academy, which is the hip-hop dance class. But yeah, she's really amazing. She's really interesting character, so I had to get her back on the show. She's also the co-founder of Hood Hippie as well, which is all about the mind, it's all about spirituality. And the Insta Live was so good that it was a must to get her back. So please, everybody, welcome to the show, Charlie Blair.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be back. I'm not going to lie, the Instagram, the IGTV was like, as I said to you earlier, it was just like touching the surface, I feel like. We've got more to discuss, so I'm glad to be back, for sure.
Thank you for coming on, really appreciate it. And I think that this will be a really interesting discussion, because I think last time we was talking mainly about the Blair Academy, which we'll still talk about in more detail. And yeah, and I think as well it'd be really good to get everybody to know what you're like, your life, your journey, how you got to where you are now. What's your plans? What's your goals? What motivates you?
How long you got?
Yeah, what motivates Charlie Blair? So I feel like this discussion will be really good. And I mean, let's get right into it. So
dive in deep. Childhood traumas.
So I would like to start by saying that I really appreciate what you do for the youth and for the elderly, and the Blair Academy. I mean, I've had a look. I've done a lot of research, so I've been digging deep.
I do.
And so I've had to look at the amazing work that you've done. I mean, you've gone into schools, you've gone into care homes, you've worked with so many different organisations as well, and you bring happiness, and you also bring something that is that can help spur people and motivate them, especially like with the elderly as well, which is really good.
For sure.
I mean, we're all about the youth, but however, we'll still touch on the elderly, because at the end of the day, we all learn together, we all grow together, and we're all about help uniting with each other.
Definitely.
Even though it's for the youth, I always say that people could take things away that are older,
for sure,
and pass it on to the youth as well.
Absolutely.
And for themselves. So
there's a gap there as well for me. Like, that's a big part of our work, kind of bridging that generational gap between young people and older adults, because I think there's a bit of fear, like, on both sides. Like, young people aren't too sure how to approach older adults, or like even speak about them, like the right language to use and stuff. And I think it works both ways, where older adults are a bit kind of apprehensive of engaging with young people. I think both parties are just going by what they've seen on the TV, how the media portrays those age groups. So I think there's a lot of misconception between the two, and it could be really powerful to actually do more work that brings the two age groups together, because they've both got so much to learn from one another. So yeah, I think anywhere where there's youth work, like, naturally there should come that element of intergenerational kind of connectivity in some way.
Wow, do you know what? That's actually interesting. I've never looked at it like that, but that's something that I'll take away as well. I think that's really interesting. That's good.
Yeah, we've got to change perceptions, man.
Yeah, no, for real.
For sure. And I think, like, for me, where I used to be a carer, I had a lot of interaction with older adults on a very personal level, going in, washing them, getting them dressed, prepared, their meals, did housework for them, things like that. And I felt very privileged to be in that position, looking after someone. And the stories that I used to hear, like the wisdom that these people have to share is just phenomenal. And I would speak to a lot of my friends at the time who were like in their late teens, 20s. They'd be saying, oh, I could never do that. Like, I couldn't work with older people, da 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 da. I said to them, you're missing out, you know, like, I feel like if you don't have your grandparents alive and in the same country as you, you don't really get a lot of opportunities to engage with older adults. So that's where, to say there's that kind of gap, and we've got all these kind of misconceptions now from both parts because there just isn't enough interaction. I think culturally it's very different as well. You get some cultures where it's really typical that you'll live in a house with your grandparents, perhaps some of your aunties, your uncles. In other cultures, they've got families spread out across the world and never see each other. So yeah, you know, it's different from family to family, but I think we have lost that sense of neighbourly community spirit where young people and old people are looking out for each other as opposed to just being wary of the other side. Like young people thinking that old people are going to snitch on them, and then the old people thinking the young people are just up to no good. And, you know, in fact, both parties have probably got a very different agenda. So yeah, I think there could be a lot of clarity in bringing the two groups together.
Do you know what, actually, I totally agree with you, actually, because when you look at both sides, you know, and to be honest as well, it's not the fault of someone that's elderly or someone that's young, because they're brought up in different generations, you know, it's different times. Sure. And but it's all about learning, and that's why I feel like for the youth it's all about understanding that, you know, they came from a different generation, and, you know, respectfully, you can actually learn so much. I mean, you know, with some of the elderly, they come out with them one-liners that you could have
pearls of wisdom. Listen, it's real.
Yeah.
It's real.
And, you know, 100%. Sometimes I'm sure when you've worked in the care homes, they say certain things and you go away and you think, wow. And it'll touch you. Yeah, it'll touch you, and it will last the whole day, and you'll be thinking, for sure. Wow, that was deep, you know.
I think as well, like, again, as a young person, it's important to have a point of comparison. Like, often I feel very grateful for my life and the way I live it now when I speak to some of these older people and hear about their experiences and some of the things they've been through, particularly as a woman. When I speak to some of the women I care for who weren't able to do a lot of the things that I do, they didn't go out and work. Their husband gave them a budget every week that they could spend, and their life, they weren't, you know, expected to go to school, or the idea of university just wasn't on the agenda at all.
That's right. And
it was like, you know, kind of, yeah, just humbling, I guess, to hear the experiences of other women and to say, wow, like, I'm lucky that I'm a woman of this day and age and I have these opportunities and I have the support of my male counterparts around me. Like, they're not trying to kind of keep me on a back burner or on the sidelines. So often I feel very lucky, like when I speak to the old people and I find out, their kind of stance on modern day living, like compared to how they were brought up. It's very interesting, and again, like cross-culturally as well, it's beautiful to see like how people live differently, like from day to day, how they decorate their homes, the rituals they do in the morning and the evenings, and I love that. I love seeing, you know, the difference between people and celebrating that, and coming together.
Totally. No, thanks for that. That was really good. So now I want to ask you as well. So, Charlie, I want to know where you come from. You know, and just growing up and what it was like.
Cool. So I'm from Walthamstow, born and bred. Proud to say it, yeah. That's why we have this synergy, because it was both from the manor. So my parents were 19 when they had me, teenagers, young love, went to school together. And for my mum, like, she had to drop out of college when she had me, and her kind of life path suddenly became very different. So growing up, like, my mum always encouraged me to focus on my education, pursue my dreams. Like, the world was my oyster, to get out there and, you know, see everything that she hadn't been able to see. Not ever in a way of like, oh, you've ruined my life. Like, my mum would never say that. She loves me dearly. But, you know, she just always made me very aware that it was very hard for her being a young mum in lots of different capacities. So she always encouraged me growing up, you know, to focus on my schoolwork and my dreams and whatever aspirations that I had. So I was very, very lucky to have her as like a strong guiding force, and she was able to kind of take the mistakes she had made or things that she wished she had done differently and kind of pass them on to me. So I was very lucky growing up with my mum, very strong lady. I'm the oldest of 6, so I have 5 brothers and sisters, which still shocks me because I always thought that like we'd have a small family, but it expanded very much so. To be fair, like I always loved school. I never had a problem going to school. I was always high achieving. That was my thing. I loved to learn. I loved being studious and academic. Like I enjoyed reading and writing. Like a lot of things that people are like, oh, they dread. I just naturally really enjoyed. So I always enjoyed school, did well at school. Same with my GCSEs. I got 5 A's, 5 A stars. So I left school like, yeah, done it. Like focused on my education, like my mum said. But I think because of that, because I was always high achieving, people didn't really understand that there was actually a lot going on like behind closed doors. And I think sometimes you'll get like a kid that's say acting out, being a bit naughty, and people might say, like, let's probe, like, is there maybe something going on at home? That's the reason that they're acting like this. But for me, there wasn't really the probing because I was doing so well and I was achieving so much that there was never a need to dig and say, oh, is everything all right? Because seemingly on the surface, everything was all right. But actually, like, most of my childhood was spent going through domestic violence. So my mum and dad had a very abusive relationship. My dad towards my mum. And that, I think, changed me very much as a person. It would to anyone when you see certain things growing up that are beyond your years, beyond what you should be able to understand and comprehend at that point. And I think just my outlook on the world was from a place of fear and a place of chaos. I never knew from one day to the next what was going to happen, how life was going to go. Like, my dad, he's a great man. We really get on well when he's sober. Take my hat off to him. He's the reason that I'm into hip-hop. He's a big, big music man, so he taught me a lot of what I know, and I love him for that, always will. But unfortunately, because he hasn't dealt with his demons and the things that he's battling through life, he hasn't always been in a place to be that dad to me or to be that partner to my mum. So growing up, I saw a lot of my mum kind of putting herself just flat out, like going all out, working multiple jobs, like just struggling really for a long, long time. So I always knew that with my life, I didn't want to struggle, like financially. And really, I just wanted peace in my home. I wanted to be able to come home, close my door at night and know I'm good and no one can mess up my energy, basically. So like fast forward a couple years, when I was 19, my mum kicked me out. Bless her, she's at the end of her tether with me, like, what can I do with this girl? I was just not listening to any of the advice that she had at that time. I was in an abusive relationship and she could see that from her own experiences, but I just wasn't having any of it. I was not listening. I was just like, no, I know, it's all good, it's all good. So yeah, my mum kicked me out, and for me, I think that was...
Was that a scary experience?
So scary, because I thought I was grown. I was 19, and I thought, like, I knew it all. I was like, yeah, I'm a big woman, I can go out into the world. And that day, and my mum knew in that moment that it would knock me down a peg, and I would realise, like, oh, actually, I'm still really young and inexperienced, and I don't know it all, and goodness. So I think as well, like, where I had been so kind of high achieving throughout life, I never anticipated that something like that could happen to someone like me.
Yeah.
Right? I think, went to school, got good grades. I went to college, got good grades. I was on like the Oxbridge programme. We got to go to Oxford University, Cambridge University, look around and be like, oh, which one would I prefer to go to? Like, I was doing well, and as I say, for me, I'd never anticipated being in a situation like that. So I think that's where things changed. But in a sense, they didn't, because I'd already been used to chaos. I'd been used to the environment that I'd grown up in. And as I say, because of that, the way that I looked at the world, particularly men, was with fear and without like a lot of trust. So it was quite difficult, like navigating my way through the world, like as a teenager. But as I say, really blessed to have like my strong mum there guiding me, so that I could still flourish into a strong woman despite all of these things.
So when you left home, like what was your next action? Like what did you do to survive?
Well, firstly, I was like, cool, I'm going to go to my nan's. I had a really close relationship with my nan. She adored me. I was like, yeah, like my nan will look after me. But my mum, she knew that she had already phoned my nan and said, look, if the girl comes knocking on the door, I know it's going to break you, but say no. Like she's got to figure this one out. Like she's not listening and she's going to mess it up big time. Like she's not seeing right now. And growing up, like both my parents, can't lie, they always had a thing of like, those who do not hear must feel. Like you're not listening to us now, Charlie. Like you're going to feel this. So I went to my nan, she wouldn't let me in, bless her. So I went and stayed with my partner at the time and basically applied for a room in the YMCA hostel in Walthamstow. That took about 6 weeks to come through. Because for them, like I wasn't particularly vulnerable. Like they're saying, you don't have any mental health problems, you haven't got any kids, you haven't got any drug problems, like you're 19, you're an adult now. Like even though in my head I was a little girl sitting in this position thinking, what do I do? To the authorities, I'm an adult. They got no, you know, they don't have to help me and I'm on my own 2 feet kind of thing. So yeah, I stayed with my partner at the time and then I moved into the hostel. And as soon as I got there, I knew that I did not want to be there. It was not a productive, fruitful place to be. And I already knew that just from growing up in Walthamstow. Like we used to make jokes about the YMCA. We'd walk past and be like, imagine living there, like, oh gosh, and we'd hear certain stories. You'd hear stories and, you know, speculate all the rumours and the gossip. So then all of a sudden to be living there was like...
you felt like you've just hit the bottom, isn't it?
It was a lot, and at that time, I know things are different now, but at that time, so talking like 2012...
Oh yeah, it's different then, of course.
You weren't allowed to be in higher education whilst living in the YMCA.
Wow, yeah.
So I was about to go to uni to do a psychology degree. That's where my heart was. I wanted to do child psychology. And then obviously I had the ultimatum with the YMCA. Do you want a roof over your head or do you want to go to uni? So I took the roof over my head. I said, yeah, obviously I need a place to live. So I took a gap year and I just worked relentlessly. Like I was working in a call centre at the time. And for me it was good because I was out of the hostel. I didn't want to be in the hostel anyway. So I used to work like 12 p.m. to 9 p.m, 6 or 7 days a week. And I was just so focused on getting the money together to go and privately rent somewhere to get that deposit and that rent in advance. I think for some people, they would have been comfortable kind of entering into the social system and staying there. Like I know people that were in the YMCA at the same time as me and their path's different and I respect it. But they were content with staying there for a few years, then moving on to the next kind of temporary accommodation for a few years, to eventually have a small hope of being in for the chance of a council house. So for me, like seeing how like my parents had struggled and stuff, like I didn't want to be in that position of waiting for someone else to house me. And I think it gave me a lot of complexes about home, like what it means to be at home, because Walthamstow is my home, right? The YMCA is in Walthamstow. I was still at home. I could nearly almost see my mum's house from the YMCA window. So I was in like touching distance, but I wasn't at home. That was no home. That was no home to come back to every night. So I think it taught me a lot about the difference between having a roof over your head and having a home. So when people talk about homelessness, I think we make the assumption that you're a rough sleeper in a doorway. That's one side of homelessness. There are plenty of families and lone people out in hostels, temporary accommodations, sofa surfing, doing all kind, and they're homeless as well in the exact same way, because they don't have a place of their own where they can rest their head and feel secure. And for me, that's mainly what home's about.
That's right.
So I would say like
home is like a foundation.
100%. It's
With,
like how you feel when you close that door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, are you at peace? And you can't put a price on that. Like,
no, of course
you
not.
can't. So for me, it's about getting out of there ASAP. ASAP. And that's actually when I moved to Selwyn. So when I moved out of the YMCA, I moved to Selwyn Avenue.
So that was near me.
Yeah, so I come to your sides, and I felt like a princess, man. Going from the YMCA to Hyams Park was like, yes, like that was big. So I just rented like a room in a shared house. Got everything back going with the uni thing. I was like, right, now I can get back to uni. Yeah. But by that point, I'd let go of the psychology because while I was living in the YMCA, they had a dance studio there, like downstairs. And there's a security guard, Steve. Love you, Steve, if you're watching this. And he always used to let me into the dance studio. Like, I wasn't supposed to be in there, but he would let me in like at night time when the aerobics classes had finished. And that was like my little release, like just an outlet to just go and feel what I needed to feel and move it through my body. And it got me through that time. And that's when I realised, I was like, I love this, you know, like I love psychology, but I really love this. Like, I want to dance. So I started looking at like dance courses and different ways that I could get into kind of higher education with dance. And at first wasn't looking great because I don't have any like classical training. I haven't done ballet or jazz or tap or modern or ballroom, any of those kind of staple classical styles. I don't have any training. So most places will go, nah, see you later, we ain't taking a look at you. But luckily, I found the course that I did at the University of East London, and it's all about urban practice. So it's all of the styles that basically came about in the streets as opposed to in a formal studio setting. So we learned like popping, locking, hip-hop, house, crump, capoeira, Bharatanatyam, Kalari Payatu. Like, I'm talking across cultures. We did dancehall, like Afro beats, you name it, we were delving in. So for me, that was like a big moment because I didn't even know that you could get a degree in hip-hop. I didn't think that was a thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
because like in the dance world, we have this kind of high art, low art form, not even just in dance, but across the arts. Opera music, for instance, is a high art form. When you see people going to uni to do fine art, they're producing high art pieces. Us as street dancers are considered like a low-end form. Oh yeah, it's fun. Oh yeah, they do backflips and that on Britain's Got Talent. Yeah, it's a good bit of Saturday night entertainment, but we're not considered like professional athletes, which we are. So I think that's where the shift came when I was like, oh, you can study this at this level. Like, you can get a degree. You can write a dissertation about hip hop. Okay, like sign me up. Where do I sign? So yeah, that's when I auditioned for university. Went to university. But even that it was a different experience to a lot of the people that were there at the time because they were so excited to leave home. A lot of them like were coming from outside of London, so they're like, yeah, I'm going to London, big city, like really excited. But for me, there was no like novelty of that. I'd already left home way before starting uni, so I was like, been there, done that. And I was in East London, went to the University of East London, and for me, uni had always been about going away. Like, you fly the nest, you leave home, you go off to some other place.
A lot of the youth, they feel like, okay, there's certain courses, like the obvious courses, IT, you know, this, that, etc., you know, like the main bait courses, business, this and that. But I feel that's a really interesting point you made, is that you didn't realise that you could study hip-hop and make a career out of it. And the thing is, I feel like in life there's so much that people can do, but they're unaware of it. And I feel like you can make a career out of anything in life.
You can do a Harry Potter degree nowadays. Legit. Legit.
And it's not even just, and it's not even just the niche things. It's like, whatever you decide to do, if you've got the right focus and the right mindset. So I want to go back to like when you just said about like your upbringing. Mindset is so mature because for me personally, a lot of people will be like, do you know what? you know, I have hatred towards like my dad or whatever. However, you love your dad, and that's a mature mind. So
it took a long time to get to that. Like as a teenager, if we were having this conversation, I would have been lashing out. You'd have had to bleep out all sorts of bits of the interview. Like I would have been going off. But
you've got to a place of maturity.
100%, and the spiritual journey has influenced that massively because
gratitude. When you left home, that's another thing as well. It's like a lot of people don't realise how privileged they are, and this is why I do this as well, because you know it's all about showing people, you know, there is different sides to the story. Like you can't, you know, what you may think is bad in your life would be a comfort to other people in other people's lives, and that's 100%. Why I you know, like, pardon me for digging, but I want to show people like how important it is to be grateful, and for like you went from a place of comfort to a place where you wasn't comfortable, and you thought, nah. That's what spurred you on. That's what motivated you to, you know, continue with your studies. That's
to this day, like when things get tough, like I know what it is to lose my home. So if I was ever in a place where I couldn't pay my rent and I was risking losing my home again, that would break me because I've been there. I know what it feels like. So when people look at, oh, you work some mad hours, oh, you do this, do that, I say, yeah, I do, but through like a fear, not even a fear anymore, but just like a deep want to never go back to that place.
That situation. And for real.
I think it's a fine line because you got to like compare, you got to look at what other people are going through and think, you know, some people have it a lot worse. But in the same respect, you got to like validate your own experiences and trauma as well. Everything we go through, it affects. I could go through something and it could hardly affect me. You could go through the same thing and it could be catastrophic for you just because of your makeup and your other experiences.
That's true.
Like we're all so, I think, hypersensitive, like without actually realizing. And when you start to tune in to like why you do things the way you do, or why you say things, or why you react the way that you do, there's a lot to be learned from that. And again, it goes back to the parent thing. Like I think growing up, we kind of put our parents on a bit of a pedestal, and the older I've got, the more I've realised how human they are. And
thank you,
you know, they're my parents, and I respect them as my parents, but on a level, they're humans.
Everyone makes mistakes.
My dad, as a man, has his downfalls. My mum, as a woman, she's made her mistakes, and I think it's about coming to a place of understanding. I'm not one for making excuses. I don't believe in resting and think, oh, this happened to me, so this is the way, you know, that's why I am the way I am. I'm not for that. But what I am for is saying, okay, this happened to me. It's now caused me to react in this way, or behave in this way, or think in this way. This is what I'm going to do about it. Because I think a lot of people get to that first stage, like they'll go, oh, you know, well, I was in an abusive relationship, so that's why I've got trust issues. That's why I can't do this. That's why I can't do that. But they don't then pull back and go, okay, so what can I now do to mend this? And I had that for a long time. I was really angry with my dad. I felt like he had ruined a lot of my childhood. I felt like he had not given me like the best example of how a man should treat you. So in my head, it was all like a domino effect. My dad didn't show me how a man should treat me. So now, when I'm in this rubbish relationship, being treated like rubbish, I'm not noticing because I'm so used to being treated like rubbish because my dad never taught me otherwise. So for me, I held on to that a lot. For me, it was like, it's your fault that I'm in this place now because you never showed me the way. Now, he can hold that. He can take that accountability. But now, at 26, it's my responsibility to go, okay, cool. My dad wasn't always in a place to show me the best way. I know that. Cool. I ended up in certain relationships that weren't the right way. I know that. But what am I going to do now? Am I going to go into another relationship now and be like, oh, well, you know, it's because my dad... No, I'm aware now. I'm consciously aware of this like fatal flaw, and I have to do something to change it. You know, and I think I always say to people, you you can't choose the cards that you're dealt, but you choose how you play them. You can never, never kind of, choose. You can't choose when you're a kid, like how you grow up, where you live, who you're surrounded by, what school you go to. Like a lot of decisions are made for you. You're dealt the cards, right? Yeah. But it's on you to play them in the right way. So that's what it always is for me. And when I speak about kind of growing up and stuff, like, it can be hard for both my parents to hear some of this. And I never say it with the intention of upsetting them or hurting them.
No, of course not.
It's completely in a reflective place, and so that other people can see, one, it doesn't matter sometimes the things you've been through. You can turn it around. Don't rest on them excuses. So what? That's like, so what? When people come in, oh yeah, but so what? And it seems so harsh.
Sometimes the harsh reality is the best way to grow. But
that's what you need sometimes. You know? And also, I think for people...
Perseverance, isn't it?
I have to show them as well how important it's been for me to salvage the relationship, say, with my mum, and how instrumental that's been to the woman I am now. So I think often when we're young, we feel we know best and we can dismiss, my dad, But honestly, like now, I'm like... so grateful that I was able to restore that relationship, and even with my dad, to be in a place of not walking around holding on to that hatred anymore, like, wasn't good for me. And with my siblings, I see it, like, they look up to me to show them the way. So I have to set that good example of, look, you know, you may not always agree with what mum and dad do, what they say, how they treat it, but in years to come, you'll understand it a lot more. I think that's my thing. I don't agree with everything, but I understand it now. That's why I'm in a good place.
No, I totally agree. Do you know what it is? What you just said is something that I've learned as well, is that, you know, in life we have lessons, and I believe, like you say, you can either go one way or the other. Now, you either take it on the chin and move on and say, do you know what, this is a bad lesson that I've learned. Bad lesson. This is something I'm going through, but it's a lesson that I'm going to have to learn and move on. So it's all about what's your next actions, you know, perseverance. Like you have to be, look at it as, okay, I'm in a bad situation, but how am I going to move to the next step? And I feel like a lot of people at a young age, they don't understand that. And this is why it's so important to have like these type of discussions.
I think... like, for me, obviously, education was, like, pushed when I was growing up. And I'm very lucky to have the education that I have. And when I was growing up with my friends, like, certain conversations we would have, I'd feel a way about kind of sticking it on them, because I knew that they didn't have the GCSEs that I had. Right. They couldn't go and walk out and get a job in the same way that I did. You know, they had criminal records and this and that. They had loads of things to contend with that I didn't. So for me, I didn't feel like I was in a place to really, like, get onto them and tell them. But now, like, I understand that, like, for me, university was the right path, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And everything that I've achieved, like, through my business, has come from me as a person, people by people. There's so many people that book me to, like, speak and whatnot, and they've never looked at my CV. They couldn't tell you what GCSEs I have, but they've heard about my life experience, those lived experience that have influenced the person that I am, and that's what they value. They value that skill set. So I think, again, as a young person, we can get into a place of rest and, oh, well, you know, I don't have GCSEs, or I messed up my A-levels, or I didn't get to go to uni. That's irrelevant now.
As well, I didn't go to university. I messed up college. But, you know, it's all about what am I going to do from now on.
100%.
You know? And... you know, life is lessons. You know, it's just how you deal with them. And this is why it's so important. This is why I do this, because it will show people that, you know, okay, I'm in a bad situation. Some people will think, you know what, my situation isn't as bad actually. You know, and I'm actually quite happy and privileged now after watching, like, you know, the discussion, or, you know, that's what it's all about. And we all should be learning from one another. And I feel like the unity's kind of gone in communities now. And this is why this is so important. I mean, would you agree?
Sure.
I mean,
100%. And I think sometimes we can get so caught up in our own experience that we forget to step back and look at things from a different perspective.
Of course.
And I think one of the biggest things, like, in growing my business has been having a mentor. Like, growing up, I wasn't ever told. I thought mentors was just like if you was naughty, like you had a mentor to help like keep you on track. Like, didn't know anyone like could have and need a mentor.
That's true.
So my mentor, I found like he's great because he holds me accountable to the things that I say I'm gonna do. So I've got someone to like follow through for. And also he gives me a different perspective. It's someone that has my best interest at heart, but isn't related to me and can give me that advice from a totally different standpoint. And a few years back, I might have been resistant to that. Oh, you know, what can they tell me? Oh, they don't know. Like, he doesn't even know anything about hip-hop. He doesn't work in this industry. He'll tell you now, self-proclaimed, he knew nothing about hip-hop before he started working with me. And that doesn't matter because he's got so much knowledge to share, and we've built such a great friendship, and we laugh now, like when we're out like having dinner and whatnot, we think like, what must people think like when they see us just cracking jokes, having a whale of a time, like despite the time difference, despite like how we grew up really different, despite the fact that he's a you know, an older white man and has come from Oxford and you know lived very differently to me. It doesn't matter because we've had this unified experience. And it's like the whole elderly thing before, like sometimes you've got to put yourself in spaces and circles where it's people that are unfamiliar and it's conversations that you're not used to having. Because that's when you're going to grow. That's when you're going to grow. If you keep being, oh yeah, what are you saying? Yeah, same, yeah.
Do you know what?
It's boring, man.
This is...
Break out of the box.
That is the best thing I think. Do you know what? If anyone can take something away from today as well, that is so important. For me, personally, I've, you know, I'm a big reader now. I read so many books, and I think we shared that as well off camera. Like, I read a lot of books, and a lot of it being self-development books, but also as well, it's not just self-development. I look into people's lives as well, their backgrounds. It helps me understand from a different perspective. And the thing is, it's all races, it's all you know, it's man, you know, it could be a man, it could be a woman, it could be different cultures, it could be someone that's poor, it could be someone that's rich, someone that's come from a poor background became rich, or someone that's come from a rich background from birth.
Everyone's got a story.
And the thing is, if you're open-minded, so for me as well, I hang around with all different types of people. You know, it could be people that I grew up with in my area. It could be people that are much more wealthy. It could be people that you know, are, you know, doing the same type of thing that I want to do. But we're both learning from each other. And it's like that mentorship as well, because 100%. Even though you're both trying to achieve the same dreams, it's not being it's like competitiveness.
Yeah, so there's a healthy competition element.
Yeah,
but it's more like, for me, it's like the caliber of the conversations.
That's right.
And like there was a point where I was going to like certain people I used to like hang around with growing up, and I felt uncomfortable speaking about my achievements. I felt like I had to downplay them because they didn't have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
Now, I used to feel bad. I'm like, okay, I need to stop, like, because it just looks like I'm showing off. But what I deeped is that actually, for that time in my life, I needed to kind of move out of that circle and put myself in a place where the conversations were fruitful to grow.
That's right.
And people were in the same mindset. It's not to say I don't love them. They're my friends. Love them dearly. But for me, it was like, I'm leveling up. I'm leveling all the way up. Are you coming?
Yeah.
Like, you're coming, yeah? Like, I never envisaged doing this, like, alone.
Yeah. And if
I
some
wanted
people
to bring
don't
everyone
want to come,
up.
then you can still be their friend, but
100%.
It's not going to be like an everyday...
It's about knowing, like, the capacity of that relationship moving forward, because you get evil eye as well, and you get people, they don't mean to, but they badmind your ideas just because you've highlighted to them something that they weren't able to do, or an inadequacy in themselves. A lot of the time, like, the way people treat us, it's more of a reflection of themselves than how they actually feel about you. So that's what I find in a lot of those spaces. It wasn't that I was making people uncomfortable.
Of course.
It's that I was bringing about the realization that we're all from the same place, we've been through the same things, we've all got our own things going on at home, this, that and the other, but I've still done what I wanted to do. And I think that's what can be scary sometimes, when you are used to resting on excuses, and then you see someone that had the same excuses as you and they've achieved it.
That's right.
And that's where it comes out with the reading as well, being able to read these different life
growing.
stories and stuff and go, oh, that person made it happen.
Have to grow, yeah.
And I think another area of my work that made me realise that is working with people with disabilities, because they have to push past barriers that you or I couldn't even comprehend.
Exactly.
And I see people, sometimes I go to teach my young people and they're like, oh man, we're tired. I'm like, listen, I work with young people that aren't even able to stand, and they are desperate to get involved, and they give me everything they have. Don't talk to me about you're tired. I'm like, come on now. Like, I know people that have pushed through so many barriers to be able to do what you consider like for them it's a privilege to be able to actually push through their barriers and still do what they want to do.
That's right.
So I think that made me feel very lucky as well. And again, being a carer, I got to see, as you get older, things change. Your body isn't what it used to be. Your mind might not be. So make the most of what you can
while you're young.
While you're here and you can make it happen. Don't waste your time. Like, I think people always say to you're young, like,
go for it.
Yeah, go for it. And I think too often we only look at that in like a kind of like partying and having fun. Says, oh yeah, you're young, go for it.
Yeah, that's right.
But for me, it's the fine balance of like working hard and playing hard. I mean, I don't really play hard very often, but it is about, like when people talk about just kind of going for it and going all out, that's how I see my work life. Now I'm in my 20s, I'm young, my brain's still here just about, my body's still working. I need to go for it because I've seen what it's like when you can't do the things you want to do anymore, or kind of worst end of the scale, you can't even remember who you are anymore. Like for me, that's like
that is scary.
I used to worry when I was younger about like the aesthetics. You worry about getting wrinkles, and I don't worry about them things no more. Let the wrinkles come. If I can swerve dementia, I'll be happy, because that's one of the saddest things I've ever seen. The onset of dementia and how it affects people, and it affects everyone very differently.
That's right.
But whatever the capacity, it really impacts their life, and I think that taught me a lot. I was kind of prepared for my body to fail me, but the idea of my mind not being what it is right now is a bit scary. So while I've got it,
use it.
I'm gonna go all out, make it happen.
I was gonna ask you as well. So, when you, preparing your day, so being organised, because I know that, running an academy, you have to be organised, you have to have some kind of business acumen. So how did you learn? Was the business side of things learned through education, or was it self-learned? And if it was self-learned, how did you go about it?
Right, so when I was coming up with the idea for the business, I was really caught up on the fact that I didn't have any business knowledge, experience, anything like that. And I kept doing all these little online courses and bookkeeping, and I was really trying to get my head around the financials and marketing, even just terminology. I'd be looking at stuff. Have you got a balance sheet? I'm like, who? You want to see a what? I didn't even know what people were talking to me about. That gave me a lot of imposter syndrome. I felt like, am I really meant to be in these big spaces with my little business, because I don't even know what I'm talking about. Even though I did, I just didn't know how to articulate things in the right way, and I didn't know all of that terminology and stuff.
When you go to meetings as well, how to conduct yourself.
Exactly. So I remember I was doing a lot of courses, just trying to get that knowledge, and I was still working full time. So when I graduated, I got a graduate job at Stratford Circus, which is next to the old theatre, and I was their finance assistant. So I was like, cool, I'm going to go in, learn about finance, get to grips with that, and then I'll move on to another area of expertise. So then while I was there, they actually promoted me to events and hires manager of the building. So I used to run both the theatre spaces, the dance studio, the meeting rooms. So I was booking in big shows, meetings, lunches, all sorts. And that gave me amazing experience in like logistics, planning, liaising with customers, things going wrong, chasing money, like so many little kind of bits that I hadn't even really thought about with the business. So I did that, and then I left there to work for Make Believe, who are a performing arts franchise, and I was their operations manager. So I basically went through finance, events and hires, and then into operations. And Joel, like who's their CEO, I used to work in the same building as him, and I'm not gonna lie, it sounds a bit stalkerish, but I just used to watch him walking around the building.
That's the best way to learn.
And I used to think, this guy just always looks so happy. He's always in a good mood. When I speak to him, he's like, morning. Like, he used to come with so much energy, and I was like, I want to know, like, how I knew he had built his business from when he was 15. He started like a drama club in his school and like elevated it. So I really wanted to like learn from him.
Yeah, big him up, man.
Big him up, big up Joel. So I went to work for him, and to be the COO meant like I could be underneath him basically and just learn every little in and out of kind of what it is to run a business. So for me, it was kind of like that culmination of like building up my experiences. And then my partner at the time, bless him, one day he was just like, listen, when are you going to launch? And I was like, well, I'm not ready to launch. I don't know enough yet. He said, listen, he's like, I'm actually tired of hearing you talking about all these courses and this and that. He's like, you've got it. Please just go forward. So I just needed that vote of confidence. And, you know, like, we're not together now, but I always say to him, like, I love you for that forever because you gave me that push and that belief. Like, I was doubting myself, and he was like, listen, you know your stuff. Like, go out there and do it. So I launched the company while I was still working full time. And I anticipated like just carrying that on and kind of phasing my days down. I did. I went down to 4 days a week. I went down to 3 days a week. And then Joel, bless him, he gave me like a bit of an ultimatum. He was like, look, I can see like you don't really want to be here. Like you want to be working on Blair Academy. Like he's like, you do a great job for me, but I know where your heart lies basically.
I respect him for that though.
I respect him. Like at the time I was really hurt and I couldn't understand. I just thought he was firing me. And I was like, what? And at the time it was just bad timing. I just lost my nan a week before that, so I was in a really like bad kind of grieving stage. And then for me it was like, what, now you're gonna make me lose my job? Great. Like, so at the time I couldn't see, but now like, I'm so grateful. Like, I hope to like see him in the near future and be able to say like, for real, big up for that decision that you made, because I understand it now as a business owner. And again, he gave me that push that I needed, because then it was like, okay, I've got to make this work now. Like, I walked out and left my job. This has to work.
That's
so,
right. That's right.
Yeah, definitely needed some like pushes along the way to be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this.
I was going to ask you as well, what advice would you give someone that wanted to start their own academy or organisation, company?
I'd say you need to be resilient. I think resilience is the main thing that has kept me going through all of the difficult things that have happened in my life, personal and professional. And what I would say is, when you're starting a new venture, in my naive mind, I thought that like my personal life would just go on pause for a minute and kind of wait while I was busy sorting out business stuff. Obviously, it doesn't work like that. So my personal life's still popping, you know, I'm still grieving and going through heartbreaks and this and that, whilst trying to navigate this new world of business. So I'd always say, be prepared to you know, have to deal with many different things at the same time. that is a lot of what being an entrepreneur is about for the first few years until you can pay someone to do all them things for you, which is the point I'm slowly getting to.
It's management of not just your time and everything, but it's management of your feelings as well.
100%, and it's that sense of self-discipline.
Sometimes,
of course you do. Of course you do. When I'm there pitching to a funder and they tell me, no, darling, we're not giving you the £10,000, my heart breaks in that moment.
Exactly.
But I can't lose it in the room. And again, that's where the elevation comes, because a few years ago I would have lost it in the room. I'd be, no, you don't understand. I would have let that emotional side of me come through. And it's not to say that you have to dim those parts of yourself, because I think it's really important to be passionate. And
people have to learn.
That's what wins me the money most of the time when I'm pitching. But it's knowing, like, the time and the place to show your emotion, to show your passion. For some people it can be overbearing, like. And again, it all comes back to like our childhood experience. I grew up in a house where there was a lot of shouting and things being broken and this and that. It was chaotic. So sometimes when I'm in a nice, mellow atmosphere, I forget that I can get a bit irate because I'm used to growing up in chaos and noise, and people can find it very overwhelming, you know? So again, there's a lot of kind of accountability and responsibility and saying, okay, I get that I am this way, that's fine. I love myself for being this way, but it's not every day, Charlie. Or it's not every minute of every day, you know, it's not everywhere. So yeah, I'd say my advice is to be resilient and, you know, own your truth. Know why you're doing this. Because if you don't know why you're doing this, and
have a purpose.
Yeah, if you're picking some surface and I want to make money, innit?
No.
You're not going to thrive. It's just not going to happen. Because when you're going through these mad things, like when COVID hit and I lost every single booking I had.
Exactly.
How did I keep going? If I was just in this for the money,
you wanted to do it.
It's because of that deep passion.
You have to have, passion for
I can't envisage doing anything else with my life. It's that deep. Like, if they turn around tomorrow and said, like, we're never having dancers come into care homes ever again, I honestly don't know what I'd do. And that's not because I'm not capable. I'm capable of doing loads of jobs. I could walk into a lot of...
It's what you love. It's what you enjoy.
Jobs now. But you can't put a price on feeling fulfilled every day. And for me, it's about the freedom. Like, money can't buy you happiness.
No way.
But for me, like, freedom, peace and happiness are all kind of interlinked. And having a comfortable financial position is what's going to allow me to be free in my eyes, you know. And we come from generations where we've watched our parents and our grandparents work till 65, 70, 75.
Yeah, and sometimes like 6 days a week and all that. That's what they were doing them times, or even like a whole week, 7 days.
And then we've watched them become old and ill. And then the house that they worked really hard to buy throughout their whole life, they have to sell it so that they can move into a home and pay for their care until they die.
That's right.
To me, we've been sold a really horrible existence. If that is the A to B trajectory, you know, grow up, go to college, go to uni, get married, settle down, get a mortgage, have a kid, work really hard your whole life, and then at the end of your life, you're going to sell that house that you worked really hard for, forget your kids' inheritance because we need to pay for your care home. Are you joking? Like, that riles me. Like, when I started getting into the care industry and I see how much people would pay for end-of-life care, and when some people didn't have the money and the local authority didn't approve their funding, they would have to sell their home. And I just thought, I'll be damned if I'm in a position where I've grinded this hard just to be able to pay to die at the end of life. Like, it's morbid. I'm sorry, guys, it's morbid. But that's how I feel. I feel like, you know, there's so much purpose and each of us have our path. And, you know, like, boss life, CEO life, it's not for everyone. Of course it's not. If it was,
everyone would do it.
And it wouldn't work because I need employees.
Exactly.
If everyone wanted to be their own boss, in the world wouldn't run, would it? You know. So everyone's got their own path, and I think it's about trusting in your path, trusting in the timing as well of things. And even though you might not be able to understand why something's happening right now, just sit with it. Like, hindsight's a beautiful thing. In years to come, you'll probably deep, like, okay. that's why that happened.
That's really good. No, thanks, Charlie. I think what I will do is I'll wrap up by saying that today I've learned that perseverance is very important, gratitude, and when you have a difficult situation in life, don't look at it as a negative, look at it as a lesson. How am I going to achieve the next step, the next stage to get further forward? You know, what people do I have around me? You know, are they going to be the people that are going to take me forward?
Yes, and use your network.
Exactly, yeah, use your network. Use your network. Make sure that you use it. You learn from your mentors and your peers around you. And, you know, life, you know, as bad as it can be, no matter where you are, what situation you are, that's really bad. As long as it's not life-threatening, you know, it can, you know, spur you on to success. So thank you, Charlie.
Thank you for having
where can
me.
everybody find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at the Blair Academy, all one word. We're also on YouTube, so if you feel like you want to, you know, learn a couple moves, come and spoke, think, oh, you know what, I might even try some hip hop dancing myself. You can head over to our YouTube and check us out on there. We're on Facebook as well, but Instagram is where we're most active, so that's where it's best to keep up with what we're doing and what we're up to.
Right, wicked. No, thank you. I'll make sure that I'll put everything in the description box below. So, yeah, so make sure that I'll do that. And I really had a great time speaking with Charlie. I hope everyone else did as well. I'm sure you did, because it was really insightful. Really, really good tips there as well for anybody who wants to start their own organisation, academy. How Charlie used her mindset to progress in life. Amazing story, and I wish her all the best as well. And
same to you. Big up the Youth Hub one time.
Thank you, thanks. And if you want to get in touch with us as well, we're at the Youth Hub UK, so that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So you can follow us all at the Youth Hub UK. Our website is www.theyouthhub.co.uk, and our email address is info@theyouthhub.co.uk. So thanks for watching the Discussion With show, and I look forward to see you on the next one. Take care.